This is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me out here. And that's saying something because I've lived around these woods for most of my life. I want to be clear before I start. I'm not going to tell you this was a monster or some local legend or anything like that. I don't know what it was, I just know what I saw, what I heard, and how it felt to be there while it was happening. So anyway, I live a little ways outside a small town. We're talking proper rural, fields, tree lines, old gravel roads, that kind of thing. My house is a decent drive from town. And behind it, if you keep going far enough through the woods, there's a lake. Not big enough to be touristy, not small enough to be a pond. It's one of those in-between lakes that mostly locals use. I'm a pretty casual hunter. Nothing hardcore. I work a normal job, and when duck season comes around, I'll go out early mornings or evenings to the lake and sit in a little spot I found years ago. There's a shallow area along one edge where the birds like to land, and I built myself a small blind out of fallen branches and some camo tarp wired between two trees. It's not fancy, but it works. If you know anything about hunting ducks and other waterfowl, you know the best light is early and late, right before the sun's fully up and right before it's gone. I've gone out there dozens of times in all kinds of weather. Clear mornings, heavy fog, light rain, even snow once when it stayed open long enough nothing unusual ever happened. It was just peaceful. This night I'm talking about, it was one of those calm autumn evenings. The sky had that flat, dim, gray-blue color that tells you the sun is going down soon, even if you can't see it directly. It wasn't windy. The water was pretty still. I decided to go out after work, maybe see if I could get a couple birds for the freezer. I parked my old truck at the usual spot on this rough little track that ends about 100 yards from the lake. Grabbed my shotgun, my bag, a small stool, and walked the rest of the way in. You have to go through a patch of trees, down a slight slope, and then the lake opens up in front of you. Everything felt normal. Birds calling in the distance, insects buzzing. The faint sound of something moving in the reeds. I walked around to my spot, crawled into my little brush hide, and settled in. Maybe that's the first important point. Nothing felt off at the start. No weird gut feelings, no sudden quiet, no the woods are different tonight moment. It was just normal. For the first hour or so, nothing much happened. A few ducks flew overhead too high to bother with. I watched a couple land out in the middle of the lake, way out of range, and I listened to them splash around. I checked my watch a couple times, mostly just enjoying the quiet. The kind of quiet you don't get in town, where you can hear your own breathing and the tiny sounds of water lapping against the shore. As the sun got lower, the light changed. That's always my favorite part. The colors get softer. The surface of the lake goes from blue to kind of a dark steel gray, and you can see silhouettes better than details. Around that time, I heard something that didn't quite fit. At first, I thought it was just a big fish jumping somewhere off to my right. A quick, heavy splash, but it sounded thicker, if that makes sense. Usually, when a fish jumps, you get a sharp, clean slap, and then the ripples. This was more like someone had dropped a heavy sack into the water, a deep, wet thud with a lot of weight behind it. I froze for a second, listening. My first thought was, beaver? We've got a few in the area, and they can slap the water with their tails pretty hard. I leaned forward slightly, trying to see past the reeds. Nothing. Just calm water. A couple of ducks still out in the middle. I told myself it was probably a beaver or maybe a big carp, and I went back to watching the air above the lake. A few minutes later, it happened again. This time, it was closer. A violent burst of water, not a neat splash. More like something big had erupted out of the lake and then slammed back down. It sent up a spray that caught what little light was left, and for a second, there was this glittering fan of droplets hanging in the air. All I could think was, what the hell was that? I lined my shotgun along the brush opening, not to shoot whatever it was, just because it made me feel better to have it in my hands, and tried to see better. Again, the surface was mostly calm. It rippled for a long time, though, like whatever caused it had been heavy. I didn't see any wake like you would from a boat or an animal moving across the surface. I started cataloging things in my head. Could it be a deer falling in? No. I would have heard the crash through the trees. Could it be a person swimming? No. I would see their head, arms, something. Could it be logs rolling underwater? Maybe. But there aren't a lot of big logs in that section, and I'd never seen movement like that from debris. While I was thinking all this, I saw 3 ducks flying low toward the lake. You get used to their shape. Wings beating fast, bodies gliding. They circled once, then came in to land near the deeper part of the water. They had barely touched down when the lake exploded. I don't have a better word for it. A huge mass of water erupted straight upward under them. It was like a geyser, but sideways and chaotic. A long, heavy slap followed by 3 or 4 smaller crashes. Feathers lit up in my vision, flying everywhere, spinning in the air. Then nothing. No ducks, no bodies floating, no flapping wings, no distressed calls. 1 second they were there, skimming the surface. The next second, there was just widening circles and scattered feathers drifting down. My heart jumped up into my throat. That wasn't a fish. That wasn't a beaver's tail. I've seen snapping turtles take smaller birds, but this was way too big. Whatever hit them took 3 or 4 at once. In one movement, I remember thinking, very clearly, something else is in this lake. I kept staring at that spot, waiting for a head to surface, or a fin, or even bubbles. Anything. The water moved, sure. The ripples took a while to die out. But there wasn't any sign of an actual body beneath them. Part of my brain started throwing out ideas. Submerged log shifting, multiple fish hitting at once, some kind of weird wave. I rejected them as fast as they came. I'd been on that lake too many times. I knew its moods. This was different. Then the sound started. At first it was so faint I thought it was my imagination. A soft, sucking sort of noise. Wet. Like someone dragging a very heavy, soaked blanket across the shore. Mixed in with that were these low, dull thumps. Not quite footsteps, but something touching the ground with weight. The sound wasn't coming from my side of the lake. It was across from me, where the trees grow close to the water, just out of view. I felt my grip on the shotgun tighten. I didn't raise it. I wasn't in any rush to shoot something blindly across a lake, but I held it a little closer. My breathing got shallow without me noticing. I realized my back muscles had tensed against the tree behind me. The dragging, thumping noise continued along the bank for a while, moving from my right to my left, slowly. Not like an animal running, more like something pacing or searching. Every now and then there'd be another small splash, like something dipped into the water and came back out. I thought about calling someone. My phone was in my pocket, but I pictured myself whispering, "Hey, something's walking around the lake," and I couldn't even come up with a word that didn't sound crazy. Creature? Thing? Animal? None of them fit what I was hearing. And another part of me thought, if I talk, it'll hear me. So I stayed absolutely silent. The sun had gone fully down at this point, and the only light was the leftover glow of the sky and the faint reflection of that light on the lake. Everything was gray and black shapes. My eyes started to play tricks on me. Shadows seemed to move at the edge of my vision. I had to blink a few times to clear it. The sound, whatever it was, reached a spot almost directly across from me. Then it stopped. For about 30 seconds, there was nothing. No dragging, no thumping, just the tiny sounds of water and the occasional frog. That silence was worse than the noise. I swear I could feel it thinking or listening or something. I don't know how else to put it. The air felt heavier. The little hairs on my arms were standing up, even though it wasn't cold. Then I heard another bird. Maybe a duck, maybe something else. It came in from behind me, flew over my head, and landed near the far side, close to where the sounds had been. 3 seconds passed, maybe 4. Then that same violent splash ripped through the quiet. The bird disappeared mid-call, just gone. The water shot up again, high and messy, followed by that heavy slapping like something hitting the surface with a lot of force. This time, I didn't try to see. I kept my eyes just below the horizon line, like a child refusing to look under the bed. my thoughts went from logical to primitive pretty quickly. I went from, "What is that?" to, "I'd like to go home now, please." There was this deep animal part of my brain saying, "You are not the hunter here. You are very much out of your element." The dragging and thumping started up again, but now it was heading away from me, back into the deeper trees beyond the far bank. It sounded like whatever it was had eaten and was done, satisfied. As the noise faded, the normal forest sounds slowly crept back in. A cricket here, a frog there, a bit of wind in the leaves. I sat there, still as a statue, for at least 10 minutes. I didn't move. My legs started to cramp, and my shoulders ached from staying tense, but I didn't dare stand up. My mind kept replaying the image of those ducks disappearing, the water shooting up like something from underneath had punched through it. I kept questioning myself. Could it be multiple big catfish? Some strange current? A freak event? Every time I tried to bend it into a normal explanation, it slipped out of my hands. Eventually, I made a decision. I was leaving. I wasn't staying until full dark with that thing. Whatever it was, somewhere in those woods or under that water, I moved slowly, carefully. I eased out of the blind, crouched low and collected my gear as quietly as I could. Every little click of metal or rustle of fabric sounded loud to me. Too loud, I paused after each noise, listening for any change in the background sound. Nothing. Just the regular quiet of the lake. The walk back through the trees to my truck felt 3 times longer than it usually does. Every branch that scraped my jacket, every twig that snapped under my boots made me flinch. I kept half expecting to hear that dragging, wet sound behind me, coming up the slope I didn't run. It was tempting, but I knew if I started running through the woods with a loaded shotgun and gear on my shoulder, I'd trip or fall. So I walked, brisk but controlled, heart pounding the whole way. When I finally reached the truck and shut the door behind me, the sound of it closing was like a seal. I actually locked the doors, which is something I almost never do out there. Old habit from town, I guess. Lock the doors if you're scared. The engine turned over on the first try, and the headlights lit up the track ahead. The woods looked the same as always, just trees and dirt and a few rocks up ahead. No sign of anything strange, other than my own nerves. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was trying to hide it, but because I didn't know how to explain it without sounding crazy or drunk or both. Hey, I think there's something invisible in the lake stealing ducks. Yeah, no. If you want more stories from out here, you can subscribe. And thank you for giving me the chance to tell you another one.